All right, so today's podcast episode is with Bitmat, and today we're talking all about Theraphi. So Theraphi is Dan Winter's technology, as for or his science, I believe. I mean, Bitmat, you're going to be here to talk about all the details about it, but from the website, I see that Theraphi is a powerful double conjugate acoustic modulated bioactive luminous plasma. So Bitmat, your role today is to break down exactly what the sentence means.
All right, cool. Yeah. So I guess I could start by saying I started listening to Dan Winter about the same time I had an epiphany that I could learn whatever I wanted on the internet as long as I hone on my discernment techniques and skills, which never ends. But I'd say after, a few years, I got pretty decent at it. But nonetheless, I was able to find a bunch of scientists with learning these types of things. Really, out of all the ones, I mean, I went all over the place. I've gone from thinking the earth was flat for about a year to really thinking it's definitely not. And, there's so many confusing things in the beginning of my researching career. I mean, whatever you want to call it, or researching experience, which is thousands of hours. And I found Dan Winter as seriously, I'd say in the first 100 hours of research, maybe even the first 20 hours of research, I found him. So I almost kind of feel like it was also meant to be in a way, because his technology is everything so his background is absolutely perfect. He has studied with the most incredible, influential, brilliant scientists throughout history within his timeline. He actually grew up about an hour north of me, where I grew up in Buffalo, New York. I grew up about an hour south of Buffalo, New York. And he had a farm out here. He had a place called Crystal Farm. He was creating, this was 25 years ago. He was studying the science of consciousness for over 30 years now. But he started really getting into it in New York, actually, Buffalo, in this area. He worked for MIT, he worked for IBM. He's an electrical engineer, his degree, and he also has a degree in psychophysiology. And he, like I said, not only are his degrees impressive, but he has been with the perfect scientists. He has studied with the perfect scientists to be in a situation that he is in. He basically, the science of consciousness, there's been multiple scientists throughout the years who pretty much figured out how to heal people through frequency, and they figured it out as well by researching human consciousness. And Dan Winter, being an electrical engineer, wanted to know the physics and the electrical engineering of consciousness, because he wanted to be able to measure it. And so he could tell, because he's a scientist at heart. But he also studied with some really extremely spiritual teachers, like the Gurdjieff school is a really pretty high-end spiritual education that he was a big part of. That he knew a lot of the big names in the Gurdjieff schools, and he ended up working with Buckminster Fuller, who's like one of the most renowned physics. People refer to Buckminster's physics and geometry and the shapes that he's made that are pretty related to consciousness. And when Dan Winter gets into sacred geometry and how there's a certain shape, a cascade, it's called a harmonic cascade of these polygon of the, what the heck, can't even think of it at the moment, but a harmonic cascade of certain polygonal sacred geometric structures, and just by the angle of which they are rotated will be the determining factor on how interactive you can be with your environment. And he explains this through gravity. He explains everything through gravity, and he has his own book, and it's called The Origin of Biologic Negentropy. And that book explains gravity, not just theories, it explains it to the mathematical formula, exactly precise what is gravity. And and a lot of people always think that's kind of funny, who mainstream people, I should say, say that's funny when people say, oh, he knows the answer to gravity. NASA doesn't even know the answer to gravity. Well, there's a very specific reason why NASA won't tell us what gravity is. And that very specific reason is because if we understood gravity, we'd understand consciousness. And if we understood consciousness, there would be no use for any of this ridiculous technology that we've been using for hundreds of years. There's these rockets that are absolutely ridiculous. All these combustion engines are just absolutely terrible. And unfortunately, we're not allowed to know that there's another form of energy that already exists. And it's sad. However, Dan Winter has the mathematical formula and has the technology that exists in 25 different countries right now being used in multiple countries. I have a neighbor here who I convinced to buy one because I can't afford it. It's pretty expensive. And she has a lot of frequency technology already anyways. So she has her own health shop and a health center. So I was just there to encourage her to get it because it really separates her health center from any other one. And it's at least in this area. And basically I have access to it whenever I need it. I've sat in it, I've used it multiple times. I'm going to be using all of its other applications this year so I can show everybody the data. But so let me just ask and see if you have any questions thus far before I keep going.
No, I've Googled a lot of the topics that you've brought up, and I just reading the description for Daniel Winter on Amazon for his book, Fractal Conjugate Space and Time, the Cosmic Negentropy, Gravity and Perception, Conjuring Life. And in the description, it writes, only love bends the light, and therefore only love creates. And that's in all caps, and that was the first thing that caught my eye, and I really enjoy seeing that. So yeah, please just keep on going, and I'll provide all these links that you're bringing up in the description of the YouTube channel.
Yeah, awesome. No, that's the beautiful thing. Dan Winter is very scientific, but he's also he can relate it to all the spiritual concepts you've ever heard. He can relate the science to Kundalini. He can relate it to, not only relate, he can prove exactly what is Kundalini, what your body is doing when you're going through Kundalini. And the way I understand it is there's a sacrocranial liquid pump, or a spine liquid pump on your lower spine. And as you're achieving Kundalini, what you're doing is you're shooting this spine liquid fluid, the sacrocranial fluid, up your spine into pretty much your pineal gland, which is basically activating your consciousness. And he explains it as that is the actual definition of going into the next dimension. And he can prove that with math. And he can prove it with mathematical formulas, scientific biophysics, bioelectric, basically electrical engineering. He can explain it in as well. I can say it too. It's just a whole lot of big terms that are really confusing. So what I'm trying to do is just try to explain basically what his tech is all about. He's got multiple forms of tech. He's got a water device. He's got smaller versions of the Theraphi that we are talking about. which are like two globes that you can place separately around rooms or whatever to create fields of energy around those globes. They would have to be set directly 180 out of phase, because that is a requirement when you're using the Theraphi or any of his tech that is based off of gravitational waves, which is exactly what his tech creates, are gravitational waves. But as you said with his book, he mentions the word negentropy a lot, and that might be one of the few words that I'm going to use that are physics and electrical engineering. I'll try to keep those at a minimum, but negentropy is another word of reversing the anti-aging physics term. And his technology creates a negentropic field, and that negentropic field is basically like sitting in a pyramid. Pyramids are, although pyramids are more powerful because they're massive structures and they're just perfectly built on certain specific locations on the earth, there are nodes all over this earth where if you build on them, which happen to have a pyramid on almost every single one of them, but there are nodes all around earth where if you build technology that is negentropic, that technology will be enhanced dramatically. And that actually, Dan Winter's tech is Theraphi has actually been used in a pyramid, and it amplified the already healing effects of the pyramid. So basically, the Theraphi creates an environment that allows your cells to undergo anti-inflammation effects. That is like the easiest way I can put it. It's so anti-inflammatory. So many of the testimonials, about 30% of the people who have been in it had any kind of 30% have reported a sharpness in vision, which is a really important thing for many people. And that's very significant as well when going into negentropy and vision, and how the pineal gland is an eye, and how your consciousness, he can explain it. So he also has a school where hundreds of kids see with their eyes closed. He teaches this, how these children can see you can watch videos on this. I mean, it's incredible stuff. And what these children are actually doing is they are explaining, and every single one explains it this way. They explain it in a way that when they are blindfolded, by the way, they have these blindfolds on that are like heavy duty. There's absolutely no way there's any light coming through whatsoever. And these kids can solve Rubik's Cubes and puzzles and read books and color in the lines and do all sorts of other tasks with colors and numbers and whatnot and these kids are like 9-10 years old, and they're totally blindfolded. Every single child explains the same phenomenon when they achieve a Kundalini-like state. And this Kundalini-like state is also a blissful state. And this blissful state brings this is what they see. They see a vortex always at first. And this vortex then turns into an eye. And Dan Winter says that right there is consciousness. By definition, that vortex leading to an eye is your consciousness. That is actually what it is. And his technology creates this vortex. It creates this vortex because the Theraphi, like I said, there's two glass tubes. I mean, there'll be pictures and stuff with the link that you guys will see with Andrew posting. And you lay in the middle of these tubes. But what's underneath these tubes as well, there's another part. There's an actual bifeeler Tesla coil that is a part of this device. It is an actual Tesla coil, which generates 500 millivolts, 500,000 millivolts. into these tubes. These tubes have a specific concoction of noble gases, and that's really important because those noble gases create the luminescent effect. So when you explained that that luminescent plasma, when you mentioned that with the name of his book, that's what the gases are, the noble gases are doing inside of these tubes. So when you put that much energy into these tubes from a Tesla coil, because it's connected to these tubes, this Tesla coil shoots these volts into these tubes, and these tubes then light up, and you see what you would see at like Spencer's or something, you know, those light bulb, those things where you can touch them, get all that plasma. That's plasma energy. And it's just this plasma energy is way more advanced, way more honed, way more specific, and also broader. It's specific, but at the same time, it's more broad. So it helps with a range of frequencies. So the most common reports are, it helps a lot with lucid dreaming, which is a massive reason why consciousness and lucid dreaming are really intertwined with each other. And when you have a technology that actually brings out your lucid dreaming ability, that right there is actually a technology that is allowing you to become more aware of your consciousness, which is incredible. That is where we are headed, right? I mean, this is a very basic model of what this technology is going to do. I mean, he's already working with so many people who are going to advance this technology in ways where it will be a leading consciousness technology that we can integrate into safely without any of this crazy Neuralink, Elon Musk style type of integration with technology. Like, nobody really should want that, because that is effectively turning the human race into a Borg culture eventually, as opposed to the Negentropic technology is literally the exact opposite of this, almost the exact opposite of this Neuralink and all this crap that he's doing. This technology, basically, the Dan Winters technology, puts your body in a field of energy that allows your body to do what it's capable of doing. And we have to believe fully, in order for people to understand the effectiveness of this technology, we have to believe that our body is absolutely amazing and capable of healing itself in ways that we never thought were possible. All we really just had to do is put it in the right environment, and it will do all the work for us. Well, if you've ever heard the word medbed, this Theraphi is in a very basic version of a medbed, and probably the most advanced version of technology available commercially right now to the average person. And it does already what a medbed is ideally supposed to do, on that, and then some. So it does this all through just creating a field, and that field of energy is, once again, it's negentropic. Negentropic means anti-aging. Anti-aging means anti-inflammation. Anti-inflammation is anti-disease. And it becomes, your lucid dreaming improves. I know for a fact that, my dreams were so vivid when I'm in this thing. I gotta fight to get out of it, because it really activates my focus. Like, I get so focused, but then I want to almost sleep, because I'm almost dreaming during some of the sessions, and I'm totally aware of some of these dreams, as if I was lucid dreaming. And that also, as Dan Winter says, that the more you lucid dream, that is one of the best measures to measure your level of consciousness, is your level of lucid dreaming. Not just level, and by level I mean frequency of lucid dreaming, memory of your lucid dreams, and your interaction within these lucid dreams, the level of interaction, those are all really massive indicators of your level of awareness. So it's basically safe to say, if you're not having a lucid dream, you're never going to reach your potential. And not only that, but Dan Winter gets into, I posted a link on, successful death and successful birth.
Mm-hmm.
Giving birth in one of these things. This is why, big kings and pharaohs, they were dying, and they were brought in through ceremonies to die in these pyramids, and they were also births in these pyramids. And the reason being was because the energy created allows for that soul during death to have a way out, because this is a pretty brutal existence on this planet, and if we live a really brutal life and we die in anger, or we die in a terrible environment like a hospital bed, for instance, where it is the exact opposite of a sacred space, where it is the exact opposite of a place where your soul and your consciousness can propagate, what this tech does is it puts you in the right environment, and allows for, like I say, a much better opportunity for our consciousness for when we're dying. If we're trying to have a successful death, we need something that allows for our consciousness to propagate and leave to continue its life of its cycle. And the Theraphi has been known to do this as well as one of the many other things that it does. Like I said, pain relief is a big, really common thing, anti-inflammation, focus, clarity. I mean, I thought I had really, really, really bad shoulders. I did. I had really bad wrists. I had pretty bad knees. And after about 2 months of this, and that's been years and years, like 10 years at least, I've had bad shoulders. And after 2 months of using this, I'd say 3 times a week for 20 minutes each time. That's all you gotta do. You just lay into this thing like for 20 minutes or whatever. Actually, some people really only need like 3 to 4 minutes. That's how powerful it is for some people. It's all depending on how sensitive you are to this energy. But some need 2 minutes, some need 30 minutes. But bottom line is I stuck around 15 to 30 minutes each time I was in there. And aside from all the lucid dreaming experiences I was having and the focus experience, my shoulders have been fine. This was about 4 months ago since I haven't been able to get into it yet, but it was 4 months ago. My shoulders, I feel like, were totally just recovered, and it's still been 4 months and my shoulders are fine. And they were bad. They were really bad. So that's just another testimony for what the body can do when it's electrically in the right environment, electromagnetically, I guess is a better way to put it. What are some other applications for the Theraphi? Well, that stuff is great about what it does for us, but it also does some really, really incredible, and like I said, he has other technology that does also very incredible things for farming and for consciousness and stuff like that. But I'll go to farming. So for the Theraphi, what some people are doing is they're putting their seeds in the field of this Theraphi, hemp seeds, for example. It's all on the website, and you'll see on the website, you'll see about 300% to 500% increases in growth of all the plants that he put in there, of all the seeds. And this is because the Theraphi charges the seeds. And by charge, I mean, it gives the seed life. And what determines a seed's life power is its ability to suck in nutrients. What the Theraphi does is it gives these seeds a life force, a stronger life force, meaning it's giving the seed a bigger field. Like the seed has its own aura. And because the seed has its own aura, the stronger you make that aura, and you can say the same exact thing for human beings, not only the stronger your aura, but more so the bigger. Because the bigger your aura is, that's another thing that the Theraphi does, is it enhances your aura. It makes it bigger. It closes the holes that allow parasites to come in, astral parasites or just regular parasites, biological parasites, all that stuff. Is you are vulnerable to that stuff the more your field is weakened, and the Theraphi strengthens this field for all living things, everything. You can put your glass of water in the Theraphi, you can put anything living, it will enhance it as long as it's like able to have whatever it's in there is able to have life energy in it. So a seed would definitely be one of those things. I mean, if you put some plastic dead item in there, it's obviously not going to do much, but I mean, anything living, so anything that can be charged. So a seed is definitely one of those, and that it increases the seed's ability to suck in nutrients. And because the seed can suck in more nutrients, that's why you're seeing these 300, 400% growths. Then you can add on his water device. And what that device, that's called he's got a super imploder and an ultra imploder, and he's got many commercial applications for a lot of these things. And he also has regular residential applications. I mean, the options are endless. But so say for instance, you're charging the seeds, which is great. So you already have a massive advantage on growing your plants compared to any people, especially people who run nurseries. Oh my God, they absolutely love these Theraphis. Also, there's a fun story about the Theraphi. There's a guy who owns a flower shop in Boston, I want to say it is. Yeah, Boston, Massachusetts. And there's another shop, his competitor, right across the street. And the guy who has the Theraphi, his flower shop, his flowers stay fresh for about 2 or 3 weeks longer than the shop that's across the street, who doesn't have a Theraphi. So it's just another indicator of what this thing can do. So then you add on the water. And what this water device is, this imploder, is you've got a nozzle on the one end, and this nozzle is in the shape of golden mean ratio spiral mathematical formulas, which literally is the same exact formula that explains hydrogen, which is also hydrogen explains exactly the radii of hydrogen is a part of the mathematical formula that explains gravity. And that's all so important. Like, that is the smoking gun. It's hard to really explain how important it is for people to understand that the radii of hydrogen is gravity. Like, that concept is the most important concept that people are unaware of at this time. But it is the smoking gun. It is the reason why you can prove what is gravity, and it is the reason why your consciousness interacts with gravity, and you can understand all that just by not just the radii of hydrogen and the shapes and the sacred geometry that's involved in this vortex that's being created with this device, because like, he has something called a Star Mother kit, so he'll show you all that stuff, or you'll see all that stuff, and that explains exactly the 3D model of all the shapes of all the sacred geometry that your consciousness travels through before it ends up being the eyeball that these kids explain. They see this eyeball, and after they see this eyeball at the end of this vortex, they can literally see outside of this blindfold. So it, like the sacred geometry, the radii of hydrogen, those are also another way to explain what negentropy is. I mean, it all loops back to the same thing. It all ends up going back to the same thing, that there's just this energy around all of us, and we call it gravity. And basically this energy, this gravity, is an electromagnetic environmental, we can interact with it with our focus alone. And So another instance, so a lot of Reiki practitioners, there's a lot of healers out there, and they have all these different energy healers and whatnot. Well, the Theraphi, let's say if you did a Reiki session inside the Theraphi, your Reiki power or efficiency would be more powerful, would be stronger. Any healer, any clairvoyant person who claims they see auras, or people who can, a psychic medium who claims they can talk to spirits and talk to, all of that stuff becomes enhanced because that's just normal human ability if we weren't polluted our entire life. So if we weren't born into literally the worst environment we could be born into, and our moms and dads understood what spiritual hygiene was before they had a child, you would then see children born who do not need a Theraphi. You would see children born who already have these abilities. And you know what? Maybe the Theraphi would still be needed just to advance them faster. But you could also create the energy that a Theraphi creates with bioactive architecture. And so you can see how all this stuff starts adding up. You got the plants, so if your kids are eating the plants that are grown with the water that is, I actually never finished exactly what that water is. It's a smaller molecule of water after it comes through the imploder. So it goes through a vortex, like I was saying, and the vortex then goes through 10 big magnets, or the water gets through with a lot of pressure, gets pushed through the vortex, and then through a portion of the imploder that has 10 really big magnets there. And those magnets pretty much reestablish the poles, pretty much give more life to this water, making it more wet. And so more wet water, you can use a lot less water for your plants, and they'll still grow just as good, or not even better. And so like I'm saying, what I was kind of getting into is, if you got the water and you've got the Theraphi and you've got the bioactive architecture, and you're able to put your food in the Theraphi as well, like that's already grown, I mean, what you're doing is you are rejuvenating the human body. And the human body, once again, is just capable of self-healing and incredible psychoactive things. What's the better, clairvoyant things, and psychic things. Those are all normal abilities of ours. And the Theraphi, in my opinion, is the very beginning model that acts like a pyramid. And if it was in a pyramid, would enhance the ability of a pyramid. And there are communities that are built around the Theraphi. You know, say you had a bunch of kids in a room and you were learning, and there's a Theraphi in the middle of the room. All the kids would be able to focus better. Say you're doing a sound healing session in a room, and you have the Theraphi in there. Well, that sound healing Theraphi session is going to be probably much more powerful and impactful for you. So I guess that's that's a lot of ways that you can explain the applications of the Theraphi, and I would come back to you to see if you have any questions at this point.
Yeah, I had just one last question. I mean, there's so much that you've explained, and I think it's all like golden information for us to kind of dive deeper into. But I mean, for anyone that's like, this is the first time they've heard any of this information that you've talked about, is there any particular path that you suggest they start like kind of digging into this rabbit hole?
Dan Winter has a university. He has courses. There's definitely a lot of ways you can learn through him, through his own educational setups, because he's got many. That's basically, there's really nobody else teaching things the way Dan Winter does. He truly is one of a kind, which is one more reason why I felt so attracted to this type of information. Because, not like I said, it's backed by math, so it's got the skeptics. They can no longer argue against it. It's backed by science. It's backed by indigenous history. It's it's backed by religion, or the real meanings of what religions were supposed to be. Like, all those things are all going to lead, eventually back to the same idea that the Theraphi is trying to create. And so basically learning about anything that involves advancing your level of consciousness or lucid dreaming experiences, that is definitely where you should start, because once you start having these experiences, you become more curious. And once you become more curious, you become more intellectual. And then you start having stronger experiences. And then you start having more intellectual ideas, or not just intellectual, maybe that's not the right word, but you start becoming more aware. And because you're so much more aware, you become way more curious. And because we are all I think we are all geniuses. I don't think people being a genius is just some random thing that happens to lucky kids. Yes, it absolutely does happen that way. But there are absolutely, I believe, as long as we don't have any severe mental disability, human beings are all meant to have extremely high IQs, extremely, extremely high. And the Theraphi, once again, like I said, it teaches not just the Theraphi, but the information that Dan Winter teaches is structured in such a way that it brings out your intellectual capacity. And like I said, I want to suggest to other people, for anyone to learn from, and there are others. There's a guy named Nassim Haramein. He does it through a different approach, which is really interesting, really awesome as well. I actually haven't gone into his stuff as much, but he also is very similar to what Dan's teaching. He just does it in a even more mathematical way, which I just haven't had my time to wrap my mind around yet, mainly because, I'm not trying to worship this guy, but Dan really has, there's no other person out there that has the information compiled the way Dan does. There's just nobody. I have looked at hundreds of scientists, and none of them can bring it all together the way he does. So I would say, if you really want to get a grasp on this information, go through his courses, go through his basic classes, or just go through his old videos and watch a lot of his older stuff. And also, otherwise, you're going to have to find another scientist who understands what gravity is to learn this stuff. And most scientists still say NASA doesn't know what gravity is. Gravity is just a theory, blah, blah, blah. Well, Dan has an actual book that proves it to the exact number of how consciousness flows through gravity, how consciousness connects to gravity, how consciousness becomes superluminal, which basically means your consciousness can travel faster than the speed of light. And that's another fallacy that NASA likes to say, and Einstein even said, there's nothing that travels faster than the speed of light. That's just simply not true. Your consciousness travels faster than the speed of light when you're activating Kundalini. So you need to learn that stuff. So if you don't want to go into the science, but you want the intuition still, and you want the knowledge and the know-how of knowing what you're capable of without needing to explain the biophysics to everyone, because it's not necessarily necessary. It really isn't. It is necessary for left-brain people and scientists and logical, who are straight logic thinkers, who think most likely atheists and stuff like that, who need the proof. Well, that exists with Dan, and that's just, yeah. So to answer your question, that's a long answer to your question. Just find leaders who can put your body in a state of bliss. And the more you can learn from that person to give your body a blissful state of being, the more you'll be able to interact with gravity. with or without the Theraphi. It's just the Theraphi will speed the process along, and plus, like I said, it has all those other benefits for seeds and many other applications for water and food and stuff like that.
Oh, amen to that. I mean, I know what I'm doing for the next few weeks, so, and I'll definitely condense all those links. I have about 15 or so that I have saved here. We'll provide them in the description, but Bitmat, of course, like, thank you for, as always, for coming on and sharing this wealth of knowledge with us. I'm sure we have many more conversations in the future to come. And hopefully we can get Dan Winter on here once I kind of get a more adequate level of understanding that I can ask like some actually well understood questions. So we have lots to look forward to.
Awesome. I appreciate. Yeah, I love it, man. I love talking about this stuff. There's just one. I mean, I'm always open to this. So yeah, I look forward to them always.
All right, sounds good.